Hey, Lee Wolf here. Welcome to Game Face Monday. We are live. Hope everyone had a great weekend. And as always, thank you for watching and listening. Mr. Richie Bello is sitting by my side here. And today we have a special guest, Dave Rozek, who's an automotive sales and marketing strategist and the host of Car Talk Weekly. How you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, we're all good here. Really excited to have you on the show, David. Before we get rolling, we're just gonna run a quick commercial here for our sponsor, Shop Smart Autos.
Digital marketers, are you ready to give your clients an edge in the competitive auto market? Well, you can with the VIN Retention Report from Shop Smart Autos. This powerful tool doesn't just track the vehicles that dealerships sold or held onto, it shows where cars went, whether other dealerships, auctions, or private sales. And it does it fast because it does it with VINs. With this data, marketing agencies can create tailored campaigns that directly address these weaknesses. It's one thing to win new customers with great creative or lower prices per click, but it's a totally new ballgame when you can target each click and new customer with powerful data. As affordable as a radio spot, but far more effective. Help your clients win with the VIN Retention Report from Shop Smart Autos.
All right. So, David, again, thanks for being on the show. Would you just give us, in broad strokes, a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are now?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, being a fourth generation car kid, I don't know how else to explain it, but I've been around this industry for over 30 years, heck, probably going on 40 years pretty soon. But I've evolved, starting very humbly as a porter, growing through the sales floor, growing into a management role, learning F&I. But one of the things that I kind of saw when I worked at the Napleton Group from a corporate standpoint, I went to the e-commerce side, and then that kind of transitioned into the marketing side. I kind of saw kind of a problem that there was a communication barrier sometimes between our vendor partners and people at the dealership. And a lot of times they didn't communicate because they didn't speak the same language. And neither side knew what the other side really did. So I'm like, how could I live on both sides, understand both areas, everything from variable, everything from fixed, and at the same time, understand all the different things to marketing. So the general manager that I'd worked for, he sent me to Google and he says, I want you to understand everything about analytics. I want you to understand SEO. And then I got to say that I was with a blessed group with the Napletons, because I had never been with a group from a corporate level that sent me to so many different schools and classes. They just really invested all kinds of money to say, hey, we need you to learn. And then they gave me the ability with them, and then the next couple of groups I work with, to kind of sign up different products, experiment. And I have this talent sometimes of just breaking stuff. So it's kind of a unique thing to say, here's my tech stack. Let's see how this works so that it doesn't cause a lot of churn with the different departments. What gives me the best ROI? What's the best practices? So, for me, AI is something that I love and I hate. Okay. Right. Marketing, I love it and I hate parts of it. But, the main thing is that we all have to look at how is that going to move the needle and how are we going to better serve our customers?
Right.
What products work the best for us? And I got to tell you, the platform for your sponsor was just about, talking about with the leads that they generate, things that they do. They're an impressive company. They're one of those companies that really, when you think about it on the radar of what they can bring to the table for a dealer, and you start comparing it, because I did a deep dive on them, not to go down a different rabbit hole, but I did a deep dive on them, and I was looking at their cost per lead. Then I start thinking about an Auto Trader lead and a Cars.com lead. And I mean, as a car guy and a used car guy, I mean, I love Car Gurus, I love Auto Trader, I love Cars.com, right? I mean, that's my life's blood, my spotlights, marketing my buckets. But when I start looking at the marketing side and the ROI, And looking at the quality of leads, you know, that's a whole different story now. So, but I'm going to stop my rambling about that. Okay. But I'm just honored to be here with you guys because I mean, Richie is a wealth of knowledge and such a huge data person and such a great mentor to people. So I'm just honored that Lee, you asked me to be on the show and that I get to be on here with Richie.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's not a lot of times that you get to go on a show and you can go, man, these are one of those people that are my idols. You know, I think about Zig Ziglar and Jackie Cooper, and I think about James Ziglar and all the things I've learned from a lot of different mentors. But when I see some of the things that you guys do, it's pretty amazing. So I'm very honored to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. And we had you here for the same reason, being an expert, the expert that you are. And so brand loyalty, dealership loyalty,
Yep.
loyalty in general is kind of like going out the window. I'm seeing it. I remember when I was a kid, it was like there was the Ford family, and then there was like the Subaru family. You always knew what they were coming home in. You always knew where they were going. They always were promoting their dealership or their salesperson and recommending. And I don't experience that very often. And I'm old. I'm a little old fashioned. I've had 2 Nissan trucks. I've had a couple of Sentras. I'm in a Pathfinder. You know, I kind of stay where I'm at most of the time. But you're seeing that a lot less now. And then you've got 90% of people doing research online. You have high percentage of people doing everything digitally now. Does the idea of hyper-personalized marketing and mixing data and browsing history, and where does that all come into play in this, and how does it shape the way we hold on to and gain new customers?
Well, in between the dog barks, I'm going to answer this question, so I apologize.
Yeah, I'm surprised my guy isn't freaking out.
My puppy knows that there's construction going out in front of the house. You know, hyper local starts with a couple different things. You know, you always have to be very employee centric and kind of have your training and your process and cultures happening, right? And so you have to have that part of it. You have to be very vendor centric. You have to be very community centric. So when you start thinking about what do I have to do on the hyper side, what do I have to do on the local side, you know, you have to start looking at the very basics of your SEO and your website and your messages. And all that stuff starts somewhere, right? It can start with something as simple as a banner on your website. And then the banner on your website quarterbacks so many other things, right? So that banner on your website could be an OEM message. It could be your message. And you want to hammer that in your email communications. You want to be that part of your branding message, your social message. But, you know, it all starts there. If you're one of those dealers that, and this happened during COVID, especially, you know, people weren't as excited to put up new car banners and programs because the cars were selling for list price and over list price, right?
Right.
So there wasn't any of these 0% financing, these special deals.
Right.
So, you know, people were left scrambling going, man, there's no offers out there, but I need to get a car. Who has the best offer? Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, certain OEMs broke that, right? But, you know, getting back to the banners, though, you know, it starts with having a process. So before you can ever say, I'm going to go and attack this demographic, or I'm going to go after these people because, you know, their purchases and the data says that they're going to be ready to buy a car in the next 3 to 6 months. I know these people are coming in the service drive. I know these people have buying habits, but before you can do that, you have to have the people in place in the process. So right now, we can do a lot of targeted ads. We can find some great leads. And, you know, people like Richie can put us in that direction of those leads, right? But, you know, one of the best things that came out some years ago was probably our vehicle listing ads through Google and then Performance Max. I mean, there's probably a little bit of cancer to that because Performance Max creates a little laziness because it's an AI ad that's based on what your searching habits are. So, you know, when we switch to Google's products and you look at Performance Max and you look at vehicle listing ads, most people look at the images on the top at the top of a search, right? And those vehicles are deep linked. So you click on them and they take you right there. And if you noticed on those particular ads, the biggest competitors for a dealer, we used to think it was another dealer, right? But it's not. It's Car Gurus, it's Auto Trader, it's Cars.com. And a lot of times it's your same cars too that are up there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those 20 images up top in that vehicle listing ad, it probably brings about 80% of our traffic. But what people don't realize is you spend money on digital advertising, right? And 70% of my spend today is not for today. It's not for this month. It's for next month. And it's for the following month.
Right.
And it's for the next month. And that's where customer follow-up, that's where email funnels, that's where social media branding and TV commercials kick in, and retargeting.
Right.
Most dealers think, I spent $15,000 this month, I'm going to cut my budget next month.
Yeah.
That's really not the attitude. It's being consistent and then having the follow-up that helps. So you can get hyper local and you can get hyper focused and you can get all into these AI tools, right? But if you don't know how to handle the lead, then
Yeah, exactly.
it's still not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. It's funny that you say that too, because I remember at one point I was young, but McDonald's decided to cut their marketing because someone in the executive world there thought, we're McDonald's. They see those arches. They already know us. They know Ronald McDonald.
Sure.
We've been pounding these people for years and years. We can save a lot of money here. And it immediately affected them. Immediately.
You know, marketing, 70% of the time, if people are used to going to McDonald's, they're going to go to McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
But it's the 70% of the time. If people are going to go to the local Honda dealer, they're going to go to the local Honda dealer. But it's not, the fight isn't about the 70. The fight is over the 30%
Right.
that are making a decision. Now that gap and that brand loyalty, it's probably larger than 30%, right? Because what happened? COVID messed up the shopping process, made people start to buy things that maybe they weren't considering, right?
Right.
Because of lack of being able to get it. So then what happened? We have some other brands that came out. I mean, look at Kia and Hyundai. You know, 25 years ago, I would have never owned a Kia.
Yeah.
I thought they were very cheap, tinny cars. Now we have a Kia and it drives great. If you ask my wife, she loves the Apple CarPlay. It handles wonderful. But I mean, I never really thought about that. You know, I mean, I was always a Chevy guy.
Yeah.
And my toys, I would always drive a Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Samsung pulled off the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's
I would
it.
never think of buying a Samsung product 20 years ago. You know.
Never.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I grew up, I mean, it's like, you know, when computers first started coming out, I mean, I had to buy a Dell and, you know, you have your Mac, you know, and then, you know, all of a sudden there's competition, right?
Yeah.
And right now we have more car competition than ever. And if you notice, a lot of the guys that are winning the race, what type of cars do they have? They have a car that's under $30,000.
Right.
They have a car that has 100,000-mile warranty.
Sure.
You know, so, you know, who's going to win that? Well, good interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 0.9 that just comes back on, a 1.9, a 0%. People are going back after that. And then, you know, what happens during COVID? We forgot about how to lease a car.
Right.
Now we have this, you know, issue of, hey, we don't have enough used car inventory out there. Well, we forgot about leasing.
Yeah.
You know, the OEM said, well, we're going to cut those residuals and we're going to raise those rates, right? Well, that was good, but it actually hurt them and it hurt us.
Yeah.
Because now we have less quality used cars in the market.
Yeah.
Just, you know, getting hyper local, hyper focused on marketing is wonderful. But like I said, today's customers are open for many things.
Right.
And I think that AI is going to change a lot of this because even the way people shop today has changed now. Because it used to be we went to Google and we just asked Google a question.
Mm-hmm.
But now people are using these large language models to ask deeper questions.
Right.
And it's just taking them directly sometimes to the dealership.
Right.
So I'm going to guess that probably in the next year, we're going to see less and less people come to our website and probably just come right to our dealership because an AI had found it and said, hey, so-and-so is a good dealer. They have the vehicle you're looking for with good gas mileage. It fits your budget. They have a warranty. And AI is going to be your trusted shopping, assistant. And it's going to say, here, go here.
Right.
And then it's going to come down to, are you treating people right?
Right. And Rich, like that's a huge thing that I'm starting to notice even at 48 years old. The thought process for me of going to someone's website to research them in any way, or to find out where they are, or to it's just like, where is Apple, Honda? Boom. And there it is. Google My Business or whatever, what do you thought? You're a shift there now, right?
I've never done that. I don't, for years now, since COVID, I don't waste time with people's website because you can't communicate with them. And the email you do send out, nobody ever gets back to you. The form, nobody ever gets back to you. Why? Because the form goes either to spam or something. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a naked eye. So I see a lot of these places that use, even though it looks like their own form, Jono form, or these forms, that they all go to spam. It's the mail servers that make it go to spam, because it is cheaper to have certain mail servers, right, than it is to that. So when you don't pay, when it's a free trial, when it's all this, the cost hurts you, right, as a business owner, right? So, and that's one problem. The one thing that I wanted to talk to David about, like he mentioned used cars, right? The used car dealerships. Well, I have everybody knows that I have everybody's feed, right?
Right.
We crawl. We got everybody's feeds, whether it's used car, new cars, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that's also in Canada too. We just haven't published it yet. But here's the thing. The average used car dealership that holds 80 cars, their inventory is over 75 to 80 days. And we did a test with one store. We are generating leads to their old age inventory. And they sold 3 or 4 cars. Okay. Now, when ShopSmart started, because I come from the car business, I believe that you can give these leads to a sales guy like myself. I sold leads that were trigger leads, okay, that were 35 cents or 40 cents a lead. They were terrible leads from Experian. People have bad credit, right? Well, I did pretty good with it, right? The problem is you don't have those people in the showroom no more. Either they left, like myself or like yourself, or they went into the financial district or whatever they did. They're not there no more, right? The talent has left our industry because there's not enough money in the showroom, right? The money in the showroom now is to executive general managers, okay? Mm-hmm. That's it. Big F&I people, that's it. But as far as the showroom is concerned, the guy that's out there that knows how to hustle, right, a customer and convert, they're not out there. So that being said, we came up with nurturing the leads also, because it ain't just about sending them the leads. Sending them the leads is great. It used to be good. These folks that are in the car business now, they think a lead is a deal.
Right.
They think, oh, this is a deal, right? And they only got to nurture that lead, befriend that person, have a relationship, and then bring them in, and then that's it. You own them, right? They don't understand that process. They see a lead, that's a deal,
right,
in their own head. And that's so far from a deal, because the customer's interested in communicating with somebody because they are in the market. The one thing about our leads is we go after in-market audience. That's it. In whatever. And by the way, I'm not just a lead gen for the car business. The funding leads is another one. I showed you a screenshot of the digital marketing leads. That's another one. And the list goes on. We're a lead generation company for a lot of things. That's what we do, right? Mm-hmm. So, and in the car business, what's good is that those leads belong to that car. You got a stock number and a VIN number.
So it's VIN specific.
There's nobody else that does that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's VIN specific, right?
It's VIN. I showed you the screenshot, David. It's VIN specific. One car, stock number, and all. So that lead is that customer's interested in your car.
And what's great about that, what I saw, and when I started diving into it, you know, at the last dealership group I have, and for many years, you know, you get a solicitation from a vendor or somebody puts in a lead through an OEM site. And there's nothing wrong with those people, but a lot of times those people are not at the ready to buy mode yet, and they're just looking. So that's one thing, right? Because a lot of these sites are lead gated, but then when an OEM gets a lead, they might send it to 12 dealers in an area. So you're working somebody that has had everybody else think exactly what you said, Richie, is that the dealer thinks this person is ready now. Why didn't you sell them now? But you have somebody that's lead gated or somebody that's casually browsing, that's in the market and looking because they do want to connect with somebody. They do want to talk to somebody. But the problem is we don't know where they're at because we're not mind readers.
Right.
But the difference is you have somebody that's VIN specific, who's a hand raiser saying, I want to buy now. I'm in market. And there's a huge difference. Many dealers have this tool because they have vAuto, because they have Cox product, they have Envision, right? And Envision will allow you to run reporting to see how many on a map, how many hand raisers there are, how many people are shopping, how many people have said, I'm just casual looking, and how many people said, I'm ready to buy. Now, again, it's garbage in, garbage out with data, right? But these are people who went on to cars.com, or not cars.com, Auto Trader, and said, when they submitted a lead, said, I'm ready to buy.
Right.
Okay. And the dealer may have got that specifically for his car, but there's all this data out there. The problem is there's not a lot of people at the dealership level that can interpret it. So people need people like yourselves to go, hey, these are in-market shoppers. These are real buyers who have intention of buying that VIN number specifically. They're not somebody that I've shopped the lead around to 20 different people.
Right.
It's you. It's your lead. What you do with it, though, is on you. It's a better quality lead. You should close at a higher percentage. Common sense, right? But if you're going to treat them like every other lead, though, and you're going to let an auto-generated email go out, that's a problem.
Right.
Because you have to give somebody something. You have to communicate. You have to earn that right. Even though that person's a hand raiser, you have to look at the details and read those comments and what they really want.
Right.
And you need to be personalized. You need to be caring. You need to lead with empathy, and you need to give them something like a video, like an intro video of you, like an auto iPacket, not just a Carfax anymore, because everybody has a Carfax, right? But you need to give them a little bit more to separate you from them, because after all, that dealer's paying a lot of money for a good lead from you guys, and it's not shopped around. So the value that I put on as a marketing director on a lead that I know that if I'm going to get 10 leads and I can sell 50% of them and get them in the showroom, if I get 5 people in the showroom, I probably got 4 people driving home in a brand new car.
Right.
Okay. Out of the 5, it's very rare that we don't get 100% because people are so time compressed. They don't want to jack around. And these are somebody that raised my hand and says, I want to buy a new Wrangler from you. I want to buy that Chevy Trailblazer from you. I want to buy that Telluride from you. Whatever it is, when you're getting a real lead, whether it's new or used, you got to just treat them right. And you got to talk to them like a person. And that's a big problem we have today.
Yeah.
Is that we don't treat people like people anymore.
Yeah.
But it's going to change, I think.
And David, the other thing with our leads, it's real simple to get in-market audience, right? What is the bad thing about third-party lead generation, right? I tell you what's bad is that they share leads. That's not our problem. Okay, so we got that handled. The other bad thing is that they're not your customers, Mr. Dealer. Those customers went into ShopSmart. I sold you the lead. Now, the next time that customer is in the market, he's going to go to ShopSmart if his experience in the dealership was good.
Right.
Our back end has a tool that we nurture all the customers, everybody. If somebody is in market, if their lease is expiring, we have that information. If their loans are expiring, we have that information. All right. We're partners with Experience, so we have all this information. We go out there and we nurture it. Right. Been doing that for a long time. Okay. Now, that lead generation that we have, we can do the same thing to a dealer. And now you don't have that problem where you say third-party leads.
Right.
Next time that customer needs a car, it's going to go to ShopSmart. That's not my customer. Well, it is, because you paid for that lead. If you will be spending the time in nurturing your DMS and your CRM, but all you care about is the now effect, well, we can do that for you.
Right.
It's another service that we provide to you, Mr. Dealer. There is no reason why a dealer sells 300 cars, right, with all that customer base he's got, and he's always got to have a hard time with leads. There's no reason for that if it's done right the first time.
Right.
It's like fix ops. You got to fix it right the first time so that customer doesn't keep coming back. If you have everything set up today to nurture your customers and nurture that leads and communicate with them. I mean, I'm in a lot of dealers with their emails and all that. You know, I'm probably in hundreds of deals across the country in their email stuff, right? You know that I didn't get not one person tell me happy 4th of July. Got it from Cars Guru.
Yep.
Got it from Cars.com. Got it from Auto Trader. Got it from Cars Direct. Got it from TrueCar. Now,
yeah,
let's think about that for a minute. Let's think about that. Why are they getting the leads and the dealership is not? Because they're just communicating with the customers.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And I saw an article out there that email doesn't work. Well, yeah. Emails don't work if you do them wrong. And if you don't have a funnel, and if you don't have a process, and if you're not always changing the content around and seeing what converts and what's that. Now, an email is the same thing as Google AdWords. You can't set it and forget it. It's not the way it works. Excuse me. That's not the way it works. An email is made for you to see your results and go back at it, and you start getting conversion.
Right.
So emails are not dead. SMS is great. SMS is a killer. Great return, great conversion. So we have all those processes with the lead generation set up where we can also, it's another service, we can nurture your customers throughout the whole process, throughout their whole journey, right? And the next time they need a car. And Mr. Dealer, if you're not doing that, you got to see what their back end is. All these other sites, right?
Yeah.
Why do they get leads? Not only because they spend money on ads. That's not really the fact. The fact is we have everybody's lease expiration, loan expiration, all that, and we generate leads to people in market.
Right.
Well, it's the cadence, right? I mean, because, I secret shop a lot, just like you do. I secret shopped a friend of mine's store about 2 weeks ago. And what's nice is that I get those emails from Car Gurus. I get those emails from Cars.com. I get those emails from Auto Traders saying, hey, would you be interested in this? Hey, we just want to let you know about this. Hey, happy 4th of July. Hey, we have a thing going on for a barbecue for the troops here in Chicago. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, the dealer didn't tell me that. but Auto Trader told me about it.
Mm.
Now, somebody may have told them to tell me about it,
Right.
but the message was coming from Auto Trader, and
Right.
the engagement that I get from Car Gurus and Cars.com every 2 or 3 days. They're
Yeah.
testing me. Hey, are you still looking? Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, as an option, what do you think about that?
Hmm.
And it's just that constant contact type of thing
Right.
that they're doing. But it's also their message. It's making me look because I got variety. It's something different every time.
Right.
So, I resonated exactly with what you're saying, because not every dealer has that. And what a dealer has a lot of times is they have that same message. The other day, I got a message on a dealer that I secret shopped, and it said, hey, you need to make a decision as soon as you can, more or less, is what it was saying, because, our inventory is limited due to COVID. And I went, due to COVID?
Who
I
even
said,
wants to think about that?
I mean, we haven't been in COVID in a long time.
Yeah.
So then the next dealer sends me a thing, and it's talking to me about the right away. It's telling me about the tariffs, and that I need to think about the tariffs. I'm like, okay, yeah, I might need to look at something in inventory so it doesn't get affected by the tariffs.
Right.
But then this morning, I get an email from a dealer, and actually it wasn't a dealer. It was explaining it, and it was from a third party. It was explaining the Trump tax credits, and how that you could buy a new car that's made in America and get a tax write-off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, right now, because I've secret shopped probably a dozen dealers in the past month, I expected this morning that I'd get a bunch of emails from car dealers telling me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not one freaking email about it.
Wow.
Now, I saw a salesperson on Facebook, though, and he was talking about it. He did a couple minutes snippet. But even on LinkedIn, there was a couple guys talking about it. There's maybe a handful of guys that I follow were talking about it, but I'm like, man, this should be everywhere.
Major. Yeah.
Is that this is a major thing. You can write off your interest, on an auto loan. And I still want a little bit more clarification on it, but at least it tips my interest that, hey,
Sure.
if inventories are a little bit shallow and I can buy a new car and I can write off my interest, then what's holding me back?
Yeah. Hey, that's why I put solar panels on the house.
There you go.
Because of government, Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But
That was the number one selling point.
It comes down to that personalized touch, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether
absolutely.
it be those solar panels or whether it be whatever, but like Richie was saying that, you're nurturing.
Yep.
Right.
And it takes a good BDC manager. And if you don't have one, what happens then?
Right.
People are going, well, they don't read the notes. They don't do the follow-up. We're sending out old, outdated templates. So then the big thing comes up, well, we better just get AI because AI can fix it then.
Yeah.
Right? AI is going to read the notes. It's going to do a better job. But the one thing AI can't do is that, and I thought about this, when you're talking to a customer, they're going to say something to you, right? And they're going to say, oh, my car, I want to trade in this car. Well, a lot of times what they're not saying, and you have to read this, the reason they're saying I want to trade in that car is because I bought this car. It's out of warranty. It's broken down a couple of times, and I don't want to pay for it
Right.
anymore. And it's those questions that AI can't determine.
Right.
AI can't feel, but AI can do a lot of good things for you.
Mhm.
AI can help us with our email, which I know you guys use all kinds of AI in your metrics and things you're doing.
Mhm.
AI could call for you nowadays. It can confirm an appointment. And those are a couple of the basics things that it was gospel for the group that I worked with when I was a manager. Every time there was an appointment coming in, you better call and confirm that appointment.
Absolutely.
It was just part of the process, right?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, somehow and during COVID, we just forgot how to make a confirmation call, how to confirm an appointment.
You didn't have to.
I mean, you didn't have to, but here's the thing, like you said, SMS, texting.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the text, right? And, I was experimenting with AutoGenie the other day, and I realized that it could not only send a text now that it added on to its product the other day, but it could also call the customer and just confirm they're coming in.
Yeah.
But, you got to program it, though. But, AI, it's an answer for some people because why? They're lazy. They don't have the cadence set up. They don't have the people. They don't have the process. They don't have the procedure. And I mean, Richie, and how many people have you trained on process and procedure and nurturing in your lifetime? You've had to train dozens of people, hundreds of people
Right.
at these groups. I mean, do you think that training is just something that people forgot about how to do? Because it seems like we're missing something there.
Well, here's what the thing is, and I'm going to answer that real simple. When you have a group of people, let's talk about 25 to 30 people, they only retain 30% of what you say, the smartest, the average, or whatever. And how do you know that's true? You go watch a movie today, and in the next few weeks, you watch that same movie again, and you see a different spin on it, right?
Mm.
Us humans only retain 30% of whatever we're shown at that time, right?
Mhm.
That's a fact. That's what our retention is. Case studies, psychologists, they've done these studies for years, you know?
Wow.
J.D. Powers did it a very long time ago. I think it was in 95 or 96 or maybe 98
Right.
with Dr. John at the time. And I saw the whole report, and left brain people and right brain people, the whole different percentage. Okay. And it's a whole different thing. And this is why they came with that example of a movie, right? That try it and go watch a movie and then go a few weeks later and you start seeing a different spin, because we're not paying attention 100. You know what it is to pay attention 100% of the time in a classroom environment? Our brains are not made for that.
Right.
No.
Are just not. You know,
No.
you pick up 30% yourself. You're an educator, right? Let me ask you a question. When you're doing this AI thing, right? So you do,
Yep.
let's say you're working. How many hours do you put in one project?
Are you talking about for me to build an AI?
Yeah, for you to build something. Like what is the time that you work?
So the complex part of that is it could take me weeks to build one.
Yeah,
But
right.
in reality, if I have all the information, it takes me about 35 minutes to build a GPT for an average tutorial lesson. So if you gave me a sales training booklet, I can upload it with AI and I can be done with it pretty much for within about 35 minutes. But here's the problem. I want to break it and mess with it for the next 3 months.
Right.
And not because I have to, because I need a quality check it and make sure it's delivering in the right way, it's doing the right thing, it's saying the right things. And once I'm done with it, I'm kind of done with it until other people tell me what they see is wrong with it. And then I have to go back and inspect it.
Right.
So, for me, all these software things, they're good to a point, but it's just like anything. Once I build it, I can set it and forget it. The problem is with the car business and customers, you just can't set it and forget it. Just like your digital marketing spend, just like your funnels, you have to constantly be evolving and pivoting and adapting and retraining and going back to work with it. Technology, you can teach it a certain path, right? And until things become truly agentic and self-learning and self-aware, it's different. But right now, it's just automation. It's workflows.
Right.
And it only knows that. It only just follows the basics of what you tell it to do. So its chance of getting stuff wrong, 80, 90%, it's not going to get anything wrong. But what it can't do, it's just like a self-driving car. You can teach that car to drive to a point, but you can't teach it necessarily unless it's got the right setup to avoid that pothole in the road.
Right.
It's not going to know where that pothole is unless it's remembered from the last time that it drove that way, right?
Right.
But again, AI has to constantly learn and be educated. Marketing has to be constantly nurtured and educated. And that's why something you brought up earlier, you talked about data. You talked about clean data. And, a big buzzword is CDPs. And we hear about that an awful lot. You need to have a CDP. You need to have a CDP. The problem with some of these CDPs, though, and I shouldn't say it's a problem. They're wonderful, okay? I want clean data. I want a CDP. I want my marketing to work with it. But a couple problems. Not all CDPs, tech stack, plays in the sandbox with everything else, number one.
Right.
Number two, they're expensive. it's easier for me to go to someone like yourself and say, hey, could you help me with deduping my data? Can you clean my DMS? And could you give my people the best processes and figure out how we can reward, even though it's their job, how can we reward our service writers, our cashiers, anybody that touches a customer's information, just to validate it, to make sure it's right. Make sure our data is clean. And that's great. If we do that and we append our emailing, we append our direct mail, we test those phone numbers. And really it just comes down to communication, right?
Right.
So if someone's going to charge me 15 grand a month, $5,000 a month for a CDP, and then I got to spend money to market with them on top of that,
Right.
and they're not going to communicate with everything I do, is that worth the investment?
Right.
Because you listen to people, and I was listening to, I think it was Ryan Rohrman, him talking that he took like a year to a 2-year journey to get his inventory clean, and now he's got it going, and he's doing an amazing job. And being in the Chicago market, and knowing that family a little bit, I kind of look at their growth and say, wow, that's amazing. Now that's just one piece of it. He and them have changed an awful lot of things, but having clean data has to lead to everybody's success, right?
Yeah.
But something like that, usually if you have a good vendor partner and you're paying attention to it with a company like yourself with leads and stuff and nurturing it, I'm pretty sure it's not going to cost me $5 to $10 grand a month.
Right.
As long as, you're my lead provider. You're going to make sure you got good, clean leads. You're going to nurture it. You're going to find me good customers, because why? Your business depends on it.
Right.
My business depends on it. Now that's a vendor partner, right? You have a vested interest into my success, because if I don't succeed, I don't buy the leads from
You're done. Yeah.
right?
We don't succeed either.
Common
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
So it's like a real partnership. I want to share something with you. And talking about process, right? So the tech world, right?
Yep.
Okay. And in the service department, the fix ops, right?
Yes,
Both things are black and white. Both things are, this is a Next.js JavaScript site, develop it for me. If you're a full stack person, there's only one way to do it. There's no other way to do it. When you do coding, there's only one way to do it. I teach you 5 computer languages. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. You're full stack. You're full stack tech. Now you can do a React, an whatever you want, PHP, whatever you want to do, right? Okay. The problem in sales is that it's not black and white. It's gray. So that's why the process, you can have a process, but everybody's different. A computer's a machine. When you're developing something, that's a machine. A car is a machine. It's just the factory gives you so many hours for an alternator. You're going to change it. Bang. Right? That's it. Done. It's a machine.
Yep.
You're dealing with humans. That's a whole different process. Okay. You're dealing with humans, and and it breaks down. Definitely breaks down. You're taking a customer from A to Z, and that customer is giving you a problem with the demo ride. A lot of salespeople, instead of agreeing and overcome it, they start an argument. Right, with the customer. My manager told me you got to take the test drive. Really? Well, tell your manager to go where. Okay.
Right.
I want to know the best number. Instead of, Mr. Jones, I agree with you. You might be a little bit pressed for time. You're right about the demo, but you know what? The feel of the wheel can make you feel better, and it can make the deal better.
Right.
Well, at least you know what you're getting, because price, I can give you the best price that you can ever imagine. But once you get in the car, you don't like it, then what happens, Mr. Jones? That's trying to overcome somebody, right? Not, my manager says, how many times I still hear that? My manager says to go on the demo ride.
Right.
Okay. That's confrontation. You don't need to say that. So that's the problem. That's why the process doesn't work. And you teach the 10 steps to the sales, and all those 10 steps to the sales are great, but they all break down. because different personalities.
Right.
You know, that's the theory. Okay. That's theory. Theory breaks down without a problem. Okay.
Right.
And when theory breaks down, you call me. Trust me, I could figure out the theory part. Right. So the theory breaks down, and that's what the issue is. Well, the tech world, I've been doing it now for a decade. Okay. It doesn't break down because there is only one way of doing it. There's no other way of playing. And if you are creative and you play around and you start taking shortcuts, you're going to have a problem.
Right.
You know, you take a Next.js task and you start taking shortcuts, and the thing with iOS won't show up. You just won't get it on an Apple if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I took a shortcut, Richie. Look how quick I finished it. Oh, really? Let's wait about 2 weeks and let's try it on an iPad or a phone and see what happens. Bang, it's blank.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no shortcuts. And that's why I was telling you about how long does it take. Because there's a A/B testing. They're setting it up the right way. There's walking away from it, and now A/B testing comes in, and it's got to be a long type of term for A/B testing. Then when you give it to the customer, the thing is set. There is no breakdown that's going to happen.
Right.
That's the tech world. The sales world breaks down all the time. And we don't know why it does, but one of the reasons it does is because you're dealing with humans. You're not dealing with a machine.
Right.
You know, so you got to have that know your common sense thing really good.
Yeah.
Because common sense has to come into play to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this actually would be a good time to break away for 1 minute with JP from Vin's site, who these breakaways are always about retention of customers. So yeah, we make that sale, but what are we doing from that point forward? And that's huge right now. So let's just take a moment with JP.
If you're not mining your service drive for repeat buyers and more revenues, you're leaving money on the table. See, guys, a lot of these customers coming into your service drive don't really think about buying their next car at that time. This is a fail, and it's a retention leak. Here's the play. Every time someone comes in for an oil change, a brake job, tire rotation, that's a retention opportunity. It's a touch point, a moment to remind them, we know your vehicle, we know your finance terms, and we have upgrade options when you're ready. But here's the thing, you need the technology that brings that data together without relying on your team to remember every detail. So Ivan by VinSight, that's exactly what it does. And the dealers that are using it, they're winning. All right, so my name's JP, I'm with VinSight. You sell them, we keep them coming back.
So, David, Car Talk Weekly. Where do we was the audience catch that?
So Car Talk Weekly is just on YouTube. So if you just were to go to YouTube and type in Car Talk Weekly, you could probably type in my name too. You can just type in David Rozek and it's ROZEK. So either way, you'll probably find me on YouTube that way. I'm on a couple other channels as well, but that's the most common one that you'll see me on when I'm talking about sales. I'll be talking about SEO, talking about just general automotive topics. Kind of reformatted that platform a couple times. But that's just, it's kind of a hobby of mine that I've had, whenever I want to kind of talk about a topic. And it's kind of like my inadvertent way to speak to my son before I started building GPTs and help train him. So I would just build a training video and I would put it on YouTube. And then a lot of times I would share it with my son, and it was really for him. And then I kind of said, well, he learns from video, but then he likes this idea of ChatGPT. So I started building the training GPTs to kind of help him, which kind of turned into, how do I help my wife with, our business? We have Bite Size Social. My wife does social media, and right now that's kind of what I do too. I just got done posting for a dealership, and so all these GPTs kind of help me with building different things. Whether I build something for HR, whether I build something for a BDC, whether I build something for F&I managers, I built a service writer mastery course. I built an AI mastery course. I have probably a half a dozen different role-playing GPTs for salespeople. I have a go-to-market one. I have an SEO one. I have a business-to-business sales one. I have a pitch widget for angel investors. I have all kinds of different GPTs that I've built. And, for me, after my strokes, that was kind of my therapy, was kind of learning generative AI and then learning things with the GPTs as well. But I mean, I see all this AI stuff is great, right? But being someone who has like an artistic background, being myself, being somebody that enjoys training salespeople, enjoys SEO and research and data points. I enjoy reading and doing a lot of different things, right? Well, AI to me kind of steals a little bit of that journalism background that I have, that creative spark that I have.
Sure.
And it kind of makes people a little bit lazy, which brings me to the point of that everybody should level up and learn different disciplines of AI. But at the same time, you can never lose what you truly are, because it's that imagination and those unique gifts that set you apart.
Right.
I mean, there's some amazing things that you and Richie do when it comes to marketing and bringing down the process. And, Richie just kind of said it when he was talking about your left brain and your right brain and how somebody learns things and how to break it down. And then when he started asking me about my GPT, I'm thinking about myself and that, yeah, I can crank out one and build it. Just give me the data points, right? I'll put together the framework. But, I'm not going to release it to the public or to anybody to use it for months. Right. Unless I have a proven one that I've built before.
Right.
I'm not going to just give it to you. And that gives me with any tool. I mean, and a lot of people know I was a beta tester for AutoGenie. And they gave me that product back in like last August to kind of mess with and test it out with AI for service scheduling. But I didn't make it live until that December. Right. Okay. I had to break it for 3 months.
Right.
Before I was ready to ever give it to a customer. And then I got to train it, make sure it doesn't cause any churn and it works with the tech stack.
Right.
So, I mean, it's those little things and details that sometimes as a car guy, we just want the baby. We don't think about the labor pains. We rush to market.
Right.
But, we're just going to add on something because somebody said it worked, but you don't really know how it works. And you need to go with someone that's a trusted resource and partner. So when you're talking about different products, especially like your last sponsor, getting those additional insights on a vehicle, whether it be, and again, that product better than I do, Lee. But I mean, when you're looking at understanding a car, whether it's for reconditioning purposes or a body shop, purposes, or just bringing it into service saying, I want to do an inspection on this vehicle, and you have these different tools, right? So, but it's understanding when you get those products, how does it work in your store's ecosystem?
Right.
How does Richie's leads work is dependent upon, do I have the people that are going to do the follow-up with it? Right. Or are they going to do the same thing with the other leads?
Right.
It kind of reminds me of the Glengarry Ross leads. You got the corporate leads that you're going to get, and you get the other ones that are garbage. Right. And it's like, no, I want those good leads. Well, coffee's for closers.
Yeah.
And in the car business, we're vicious.
Yeah.
We are vicious, but at the same time, who's vicious in the dealership? Do you got one manager that's vicious in the sense of tenacity and follow-up? I'm not talking about mistreating the customer, because that's a different issue. We got to be good concierge.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody that's just going to make one phone call and then go, well, I called once, I sent one text.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a study and it took 17 touch points of a lead just to get a customer to schedule a test drive.
Right.
And that meant I sent them an email, I gave them a phone call, I sent them a text with a video. And then it wasn't just me following up. It was a group of people. It was a manager following up. It was a dealer principal. And we all had one goal, to help the customer along their purchasing journey, but to stay top of mind when they're ready.
Right.
And, you know, when you get a great lead, when you get the Glenn Gary Ross lead and you treat it like everything else and you wonder why you're not successful, well, you need to hire somebody either to nurture it, or you're just going to get a bunch of leads and throw it up against the wall and see what sticks, right?
Right. And you don't want to do that.
That ain't the car business anymore.
No.
You know, it used to be. It used to be you could have no plan when you walked for the day. You could. I used to be able to walk in the dealership, and as soon as I walk in the dealership, there was an up on the lot. I can walk in and wait on them. I didn't have to do my follow-up. I didn't have to work my book of business. I didn't have to work the service lane. I didn't have to think about where am I getting additional inventory from. Now, we're not just car salespeople anymore. We're not just managers anymore. There isn't a manager that works the sales tower anymore that shouldn't be wearing a bunch of different hats.
Right.
And it always upsets me. Like the other day, I was talking to a general manager and a sales manager, and I said, hey, did you guys go in your call review and do you have your settings set up to get notifications when someone says the price is too high? And they said, call review. He says, yeah, we have that. And I said, yeah, don't you listen to your calls? Don't you have alerts set up? And he's like, no, we don't have time to do that.
Right.
And I said, what do you mean you don't have time to do that? I said,
why perfect our craft? Yeah.
You know, I'm like, well, don't you go over this and go over in your meetings and your pending meetings every day? And don't you go over your calls and who's got what appointments and why we're not putting it together? And hey, what happened with these leads and who's working this? And they're like, oh, we don't do that. I'm like, they're like, they have their CRM. It tells them what to do. I'm like, really? And I said, but who's just touching base with everybody and training and seeing how we can help them overcome these issues?
Yeah.
And then I realized after about the 5th dealership I heard this out of, in 10 days.
Wow.
I heard the same story at 5 different dealerships. And you know what I realized? I don't have time.
Right.
I don't have time. We don't have time. And I said, man, what's happened with training?
Yeah.
Because the leads are there. You want to find deals, go to your CRM. You want to acquire more cars, go to the service lane. You want to find customers, they're on social media.
Yeah.
You want more of them, call Richie.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to tell people, but you keep giving them the answers, and all you keep hearing is excuses anymore. So how do you think we should fix that, Lee? I mean, Richie, how do we fix that stuff? Sorry, you got my puppy over here.
It's funny. My guy's perking up, looking around, going, "Where's this dog?"
I think.
I mean,
the whole thing, like the whole thing with this retention thing and seeing dealers what they're doing and what they're not. You know, and you were talking about Auto Genie, right? That's a fix ops tool.
It's a fixed ops product primarily. It can do sales and a bunch of other things, but I never validated it to do anything other than that.
Okay.
A lot of people use it as an after hours hybrid tool because it's super cost effective. It's just, it answers the phone when you can't, and it's just to schedule your service appointment. Pretty simple, right? It's not, it's a wonderful product for what it is, and it's cost effective. But if you're looking for an entry level AI product, that's what it is.
Right.
It's more or less an entry-level AI product to help you scheduling. But the reason we have that type of product, though, is because people aren't answering the phone. People are waiting to get into the service department. It takes them 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get there. And the reason that I started using that product is that last summer, I sat with the rep from Call Review. Stephen Kaplis was his name, or is his name. And Stephen, he works for Jack Behar. Well, I think when it was Total CX, now it's Call Review. But Stephen showed me, he says, hey, you're missing a bunch of calls after hours for the group. So I'm looking at 7 locations at that time before they downsized. And I'm like, well, how many calls a month are we missing? He goes, well, just your service number on your website. And he goes, and that's not the number that everybody calls. They call your main number on the website. He goes, but just your service number, he goes, is getting 1,700 calls a month. He goes, that you're missing at night. He goes, you're getting 1,700 calls a month after hours. Wow. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot. What do I do? So I took a couple stores and I said, well, let's try this AutoGenie thing. And what we noticed is that we saw a lift of 30% in our service appointments.
Wow.
But here's the other kicker to it, though. Even though we saw a lift of 30% in appointments, overall for the month, appointment show was only 7% lift month over month with them on.
Wow.
So I said, wait a second. 30% more appointments. Well, what day are they not showing? Well, they weren't showing on Saturday. That was my biggest missed appointment day. Most customers, they'd schedule appointments. They're going to come in on Saturday. What happens? Well, I got to walk the dog.
Right.
I got a honey-do list.
Right.
I got invited to a party. My kids want to go here. I forgot about the game. Or,
Right.
you know what? I went out and tied one on last night, and I just don't feel like going to the dealership, right?
Yeah.
But how do we eliminate that? Well, I figured out, you know what? I'm just going to have our service writers and our BDC, I'm having to do a confirmation call the day before. We're going to make sure that we send out an email and a text. And at first, before I did, I had AI call, but then I said, you know what? Nobody wants another robocall.
Right.
So I'm like, and even though AutoGenie tells you it's your personal assistant calling you and you're used to talking to it already, that's fine. But as soon as I added people in and put the human touch in, and I had humans calling customers to confirm their appointment,
Right.
all of a sudden we went to 18% appointment show. So 30% increase in appointments with AutoGenie after hours. But then we dropped to only a show of 7% in reality, but then it jumped 11 points, so 18%. And all it was just doing the simple thing of doing a confirmation call and text.
Right.
And we just, you pivot and you adapt. And I don't think that people watch those metrics, though, as much as they should. So I'm sorry. I know we went down a lot of rabbit holes.
No, all good. All good. Yeah.
Well,
no.
what I wanted to say to you was the VIN retention report.
Yeah.
Has one part that shows you how many deals are you losing to private sellers. Okay. The average store is losing 275 cars to the average seller in 1 year.
Wow.
Okay. The average cost for repairs on an average is $1,472. That includes CPL, recalls, and warranty work. Okay. So if you take that number with that report, there's a lot of dealerships that are losing a lot of money. But hold that thought.
That's a lot of money. I got to do the math now.
Well, then you got something called auctions on that report, which is all online auctions. Basically, it's all like go and sell your car on my platform, right? The online auctions are considered like, bid your car and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
They're losing about 300 on an average. This is an average. We average it out about 300 cars a year.
I mean, that's $380,000.
Now, let me ask you something. Let's say they trade in that car. All right. On the trade, that's $5,000 that you're making, right? You trade it in, you're making 5Gs on the other side. That's 10 years. Let me tell you something. That VIN retention report, if I'm a dealer, I am looking at it and having a meeting with my managers every single month and going over like my financial statement. Because that money is leaving your store. Well, no wonder the vehicles in operation, based on experience, says they're all over the place. Dealers are losing their vehicles of operations.
Yeah.
And like Ford Motor Company is saying, we got the highest loyalty with Ford, that we're not losing them. but they're going to different stores. Well, why? Because you, Mr. Dealer, is not paying attention. You got to communicate with people. That's what it's all about.
Right.
It's being in touch with people.
Yeah. Without a
And
doubt.
when you're not in touch with them, and that report tells you where your fixed operations problem is, it identifies it like in black and white.
Yeah.
That's an amazing amount of data to have, you know, and I'm
Yes.
sure that you nurture that and you train that and you explain all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
And
Like
then
I'm
that's-
explaining it now.
Yeah, it's an
Like,
invaluable
where is
thing.
there- yeah, where is there an opportunity here, Mr. Dealer? Focus on your customers. You know, dealerships just care about sales. They don't, you never see a dealership, hey, Richie, could you get me leads for service? Nobody ever asked that question.
Really?
Yeah, because they just think that that's automatically going to happen.
Right.
And it's not. It's not automatically going to happen.
Right.
You know, that's not the way it works. Some people go out to Bet Boy, some people go to there to here, you know.
But why wouldn't they? Because, I mean, you know, tires, you know, people go, there's not a lot of profit in tires. And I said, it's not about the profit in tires. It's the retention and keeping them coming there. I said, you know, you give away that oil change, you do the Saturday service, you do the remote service. It's about being sticky, and it's about keeping that customer and retaining them.
It's about the upsell.
Right. Well, and think about all the safety in the recall side there is too. And, you know, who is the trusted dealer that's going to help me out and going to, you know, let me know, hey, I have a recall. You know, so many dealers forget just to call people that let them know they have a vehicle under recall, even though they're getting a postcard in the mail from the OEM. You know, it just blows my mind that, you know, customers need to have their brakes done. Customers need to get their oil change done. They need to have a filter change or whatever. You know, and it's just, you know, for me, I'm nuts about, hey, I need to change my pollen filter. I need to do this filter. But if nobody asks you or nobody reminds you above it, you know, you're not going to get it done. And I think that as much as people say, hey, we need more service customers, we need more people to come in here and service their cars here, why wouldn't a dealer think about spending more money? I literally, when I got to this group, I said, you know, in the fall months and the tire months and the specials with the OEMs, and you start coming into the beginning of the year in the spring, I said, you know, you might be able to get away with spending 5 to 10% of your store's budget on advertising for fixed ops. And dealers look at me like, what do you mean 5 to 10%? We spend like 2%.
Right.
And I'm like, really? I said, do you realize that in reality, you probably should be spending about 40% of your budget in like January and February and March to get people, you know, road ready and even winter ready. I said, that's a huge season of getting people in. I said, but let me tell you something, independent shops, they're not marketing to people. You don't see Firestone and Pep Boys and Costco not doing ads during that time.
How long you been in the car business?
Oh, since the 80s.
Okay. Do you remember the new car clinics?
What was it?
New car clinics.
You know
The
what?
dealership would be shut down once a month.
To bring people. Got it.
All right. Do you know who started that? His name was Rick Case.
Oh, yeah.
From Columbus, Ohio, and then he moved to Florida. He's got 40 stores still. Okay.
Yep.
He started that. New car clinics. Okay. Then he did orphan owner clinic in service.
Yep.
Okay. That ended. You talk to people today about that. They look at you like you have 10 heads.
Right.
10 heads. That's why our retention at one time was stupid in service, 75 and 80%. As the old timers started passing, that ended. Okay. At one time, I worked for a store that did that every single month and did orphan owners. And I mean, the service department was crazy numbers for a store that did about 150 cars. Our just CPL alone was like 500 grand. Just CPL alone. Okay.
Yeah, there was a normal thing at Bill Jacobs. I remember the service manager coming to me, and I was a used car manager then. And I remember we'd get together with a caterer and we'd get some food or we'd get some pizza.
Yeah, right.
And then would bring people in. And I would love that you'd always have that couple that would have a child seat. And they just bought a car a week ago. And you'd have them bring them to the once a month new car clinic that we would have. And they didn't know how to put in their child seat. And you're going, oh my God, I'm so glad that they came in here and that I helped them put their child seat in right and showed them how to buckle it. Because even if the salesman did their job, sometimes things get lost in translation and you've been in the dealership for a couple hours, you're taking delivery and you forget. You know, I got to say kudos to like BMW and Porsche and other brands that have like my son, he's a Porsche Pro. He spends a long time with the customer before they go into the finance office and when they get out, just going over the vehicle and setting up their phones. And there's a lot of technology. But even at those stores, they invite owners back in to go through a workshop, to go over everything with them, explain their warranty, to set up their first of service appointment. And that was just kind of normal in the car business. So when you said that new car clinic, I'm like, oh yeah, this thing we used to do once a month. But then I thought about it with the group I just left. Not once did they ever do it in 2 years.
That's when there was a whole thing. New car clinics, often owner clinics, right?
Yep.
And then at the end of the month, you did absorption. Okay. The owner wanted to know, okay, so what was my absorption rate? People don't talk about absorption anymore. No more. Okay. They don't say anything about that. They just don't pay attention to it. Well, that's something to pay attention because that means what you're spending in service, what you're spending in sales and advertising, your service department is absorbing that cost. Now everything in sales is profit.
Right.
Okay. They don't talk about that no more at all. Just like nobody talks about automation anymore, everybody talks about AI. Really? There's no AI with automation. Why did we forget about automation? Because AI sounds like, artificial intelligence, it sounds better.
Yeah.
But it's all about automation. Nobody ever says that anymore.
No.
But, I was one of the beta guys when that company existed. It still does, Infusionsoft, but now it's called Keep, with Mr. Clayton, right? He was a CEO at the time. He invited me to Arizona to see this product. It was 08 or something, 09. He didn't have it developed yet. He was just, in there. So it was all automation and everything was, you see like AI is now, you remember in 08, everything was automation. You got to automate. Now, hey, it's all about, you got an AI. That's good, but there's no real AI without automation. Try doing something in AI and have no automation and watch what happens.
Yeah.
How are you going to get the information?
Yeah. Like we have Terminators running around.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's things that are changing but are not necessarily really good that are happening in the marketplace. And that's why we developed ShopSmart that helped the dealer get back control, get back his retention, because it's way out of control.
Right.
It's really, really out of control. And it's like the most craziest thing that you've ever seen, right?
A picture of us.
That's what they do. They don't realize what's going on in the marketplace, like the cost. The real cost of advertising is crazy. If they would be focusing on service and not losing so much service business, that's why there's fixed ops marketing. That's why there's this. That's why there's that. They didn't have to have that years ago because the dealer itself did a whole show. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, every customer that you delivered, you're going to have like an event for them, and you're going to engage with them. The service advisor is going to meet them. The service manager is going to meet them. The service and parts director is going to meet them. A whole thing.
Right.
You think you need a guy from fixed ops marketing to do any marketing? You think you need anybody like that? Yeah, okay. Ask that question to Bill Hurd when he made $1 gazillion in service. I mean, $1 gazillion. As much as Elon Musk he made in service. Bill Hurd, that doesn't exist anymore, organization out in Houston.
Right.
I mean, His stores had 50, 60, 70 bays, 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Okay. So, why? Because he did a show. He did every single month. Every single month. He would invite them. Everybody. He would invite them lunch or a brunch on them and everything. He rented at one time a full restaurant and shut it down. Okay. Because he was delivering like 800 cars. He just did a whole thing like that for them. So now we're able to see all these things and meet people, and that's where you do it, Now, today, everything's digital, everything's marketing, so of course, But me, if I'm a consultant in the store, all I would tell them is to do that, and you watch how much business they get automatically.
Yeah.
But I think the difference, though, is experiences, is what you're saying, because they're given experiences, and that's the difference. You remember an experience.
Yeah.
You remember being taken care of. You remember personalization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think the funnels and the nurturing is that you have personalization. I remember it. But then you pair that in dealership with experience and reputation and just treating people like a person and not just a commission check.
Yeah.
And now you have something special. And then you think about what's the other pain point? It's service. It's keeping them happy in the service side, making sure that when they call, we get them in and out. And, we can pick up their car. We can have a loaner car. We can wash their car. We can make sure that we do everything that we did. I mean, I never seen dealership groups all of a sudden gravitate to service so much until COVID happened. Before, we did it at BMW. We did it in the Bill Jacobs group. I mean, the VIP experience was part of our culture, right?
Right.
And we learned that from a lot of other groups like the Case Group and other people, right? But the thing about it is that during COVID, everybody all of a sudden did pickup and delivery. Everybody all of a sudden was putting down the floor mats on the car. Yeah. Everybody was sanitizing the car.
Yeah.
We went into this total concierge mode, and then all of a sudden the past year happened, and that's kind of gone away again.
Yeah.
You got some people that kept it. Some people said we need to do remote service. Some people realized that, hey, guess what? It's competitive. We have less cars, but yet we still need to do marketing. Right. We still need to do follow-up. We need to do follow-through. And I think that, I don't know what it is about people. We just think that AI is going to fix something.
Right.
Well, it can't fix it if your culture's broken to start with.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to look at the tech stack and you don't know how to step back for a second and not get into all the data bullshit, and excuse the language, data is a good thing. But you got a lot of people who are selling people on data and not experiences. Spend your money on this data, and that's great. But one piece of data has to be part of a bigger puzzle.
Right.
And I think that most people don't know what it is really to sit down with a marketing mind like you guys, or even to sit down with myself. And I kind of sit down with people and I'm like, okay, tell me what your pain points are. What are you trying to accomplish and why? And then I start looking at the budget, and then I start looking at all the products and the leads and how we handle them. And I kind of come up with a battle plan, but it's a battle plan that kind of says, okay, here's the core of what we need to do.
Right.
But then we need to figure out how that works with you and your culture without any churn. And then we need to be able to pivot.
Right.
And we need to be able to pivot again, ask why, how come, change, switch it up, be entrepreneurs, and yet have the culture to want to be successful together.
Absolutely.
And if we could pair ourselves with a marketing company that can provide me with good leads without all the minutia, that's a big part of the battle.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where ShopSmart comes in. I think that's where White Dove comes in. I mean, I think that taking the marketing tools that you guys have and just putting some common sense to it and a plan and following it and just going, I need to get it done. Right? Now, the complexity of the car business, and that's where you guys are probably more successful even outside of the car business, is simply because there's so many variables, like Richie said earlier. We just don't know what's going to happen day to day. We have a plan, but it can change any minute.
Right.
And we have to be able to delegate and pivot.
Right.
We have to be able to say, I understand really quickly, recap it, and then just fix the problem and move on.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that if you don't have a plan and you're just going to work to sit around and smoke a cigarette and you're going to wait on stuff,
Right.
that's not anymore. Business doesn't happen like that anymore.
No.
Or you're going to be stuck with a bunch of salespeople that sell 8 cars a month.
Right.
When in reality, you should be selling 40 or 50 a month each salesperson.
Right.
I couldn't see going back to the floor ever selling less than 30 or 40 cars a month nowadays. It's amazing when I see very people that kind of practice sales the same way I do, who are selling 60, 70 cars a month.
Yeah.
You know, and when someone tells me I only sell 10 or 15 cars, I have to ask me why. Either you're in the wrong place or you got the wrong attitude there, or something's going on. Because I think when there's lead providers like, you know, with ShopSmart and products like that, there's no excuses really anymore.
Right.
We're talking VIN specific.
Yeah.
So what's missing? The experience.
Yeah.
Experience is missing.
Without a doubt. And on that note, if anyone wants to find out more about David and or Car Talk Weekly, the phone number's at the bottom of the screen. You can give him a call or text, which is again that human experience that he likes to give everyone. That's pretty cool to have the cell up there like that. Just also want to remind everyone about Anthony Alagona's big event. It's a couple of days. It's coming up like next week, right, Rich? By appointment only events.com. You can find out more about that and how to turn business into a well-oiled machine. And also don't forget, Let Data Take the Wheel. Richie's book is sitting there on Amazon, just waiting to be scooped up. Every penny from the book goes to stopsoldiersuicide.org, which I've probably said 100 times, but it's really important. It's the only organization in the country that focuses solely on soldier suicide, which is a major epidemic and has been for a long time. And again, every book sale from Amazon for Let Data Take the Wheel, every penny is going to that organization. Rich, you got anything else you want to add today, or are we ready to wrap?
I'm good. I'm just grateful that David came into the podcast, and I'm grateful that I met a person like David that's very well versed in the automotive sector, and he's very well versed in the digital marketing world, and he's good tech, and I've seen his stuff. He shared with me a few technologies that he's got. He's unbelievable. He does really, really good. If you guys need anything like that, this is the guy to reach out to, because he has the knowledge of the car business, massive. He has the knowledge of the tech world, massive. So the two things together. I had a gentleman that that's a car guy, and I introduced him to a technology guy, and he told me, you know, Richard, he's not a car guy. Please, I could care less. Listen, technology and automotive sector are two different things. You got to accept it today that somebody might not have experience in the car business, but has experience in the tech world. With David, you're getting the full package. You're getting both of them. You're getting that end and also the car business end, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But David, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I look forward to more engagement like this. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Take care now.
Thanks for being on the show, and thanks everyone again out there for watching and listening. Have a great day.
Take care.